of joy. Have fun.
Thanks so much, Kathleen. And Book Club of California, you rock. My first solo show. And I can't explain it except that I know you're not going to believe me if I tell you that I think of myself as shy when I'm not. Oh, see, Eli says, yeah, she's really shy. Listen to this. So I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm just pleased as punch that there's there's examples of the one-day class over there. Right now, I actually abandoned my 5-day class at the Center for the Book to come here early because it's scheduled. Actually, you'll like to know that I was scheduled to teach today from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. That was a typo. But and I thought I told everyone, it was clear, it's like 9 to 6, I'm not that crazy. But then I said, well, I have to leave early because I'm having this, I kind of overlap these shows. I screwed up. So I'm abandoning you, and, but you can stay. And so they're there, and you're here, and so am I, and I'm really, really happy about that. So I hope you get a chance. Those will go back upstairs. And I thought I don't have to put a little thing on that says, please don't take these home with you. They're examples of the class. But everything else, that we have lots of cookbooks for sale. I brought all like 9. I bought them off the internet last year when Stanford bought one of my big books, Remember the Light, and I was so happy about that. So I went online and I saw that Jessica's Biscuits had 140 first editions of my books from 1987. Now, and they were selling them for like $14.95. Okay, now, and they sold in 1987 for $25. And just tonight, no inflation, you can still buy them for $25. The good news is, so I ended up, they shipped them out, and I think they were $16. And I told the book club, I said, hey, you can keep the other $9. We're not going to make big money here. But the great thing about the book is, A, it's hardcover. B, now it's out of print. Isn't that fantastic? Because I have them all, and it's really nice. It took 3 years to do the illustrations. I didn't do them. A woman in Madison did, and I'd have to make all the food, and then she'd photograph them, and then she could eat it, right? And then she had to do the illustrations in the background afterwards. So it's a great book. What else do I want to say? Oh, so I don't want to say anything more about that. I wanted to start out here. See, this is great. It's like, I do love the teaching above all. Otherwise, I'd be sitting at home in my basement printing, and I wouldn't get to know you all. And I think my first love in life has always been people, because I love people. And I often think like one-to-one is best. So the idea of, hey, Mary, a group speaking always in my mind terrorizes me, but then when I see that you're all one and you're all individuals that I know and hopefully get to know, then it's all like we're all one, so I like that. The first class I taught at Kala Institute, I think it was like 1990. I had a fellowship there, and somebody came in and they set this quote by Martha Graham, and I'm sure you've heard it. In case you haven't, I'm going to read it to you. So, and it appeared later. This was called The Human Journey, that was done by a week-long class, and it wasn't obviously the same person. This was done in 2005. So I just thought, like, oh, everything circles back on itself. So she says, there is a vitality, a life force, a quickening that's translated through you into action. And because there's only one of you in all time, this expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium and will be lost. Are you listening? Just like you. The world will not have it. It is not your business to determine how good it is, nor how valuable it is, nor how it compares with other expressions. It is your business to keep it yours, clearly and directly, and to keep the channel open. You do not even have to believe in yourself or your work. You have to keep open and aware of urges that motivate you. Keep the channel open. It's like, yeah, go Martha Graham. Yeah, great. So, I'm not a dancer, but I thought, oh, I love that quote, and here it came back to us. So I thought I'd take you on a little personal journey, because that's why you're here, and that's I end up putting weaving my past, I mean, that's how, what informs my work is my personal history, of course, and other people. And this is actually a relative of mine, if you can tell by the nose. Oh, not the beard or the hair, the hairline maybe. David Laird was a governor of Prince Edward Island. Before that, he was he ran a newspaper in Charlottetown, and he didn't really like that. So he became governor, and I'm not sure how well he liked that. But then he decided to do treaties with the Indians in the Northwest Territory in Canada. So he did that, and he must have done that pretty well, because we have 3 medals, a gold medal, a silver medal, and a bronze medal from him that are in the chest with everything else in the attic. And I was really thrilled with this when I was a child, because I thought, oh, he did all this good stuff. And then you start reading about how the United States deals with Native Americans, and you think, ooh, and like, well, maybe my great-grandfather, ooh. So I'm hoping that maybe he was dealing in a better fashion, but I won't know that. All I know is that I had a relative who wrote this book about the Honorable David Laird, and that I have these medals, so I'll just have to, think that it was in the best interest. So there's a story about my great-grandfather and my mother, who was a very private person, so she would be appalled to know that I'm up here spilling the beans about all the family here tonight. I always wanted her to write down stories from her past, so that after she died, I'd have memories. So I kept making journals for her. And I'd give her more and more journals, and she'd never write anything. And finally I said, Mom, you have to write in them. So she wrote one story, and the story was not about her, it was about him. And the story was that he was at a council meeting, he had a big tall hat on, a big wide brim, and one of the Indians wanted to see if he was saying the truth or not. So they shot a bullet through his hat. Now, I don't know if they intended to kill him or what, or upset him, but he didn't flinch. He went through the top part of his hat, and they decided that he could be trustworthy after that. Now, again, it's a story, and who knows what the truth is in it. But that was what my mother wrote in her journal. So if all of you out there are writing your journals, you can write that too, but also write stuff about what's happening in your life. And I further emphasize this by, I've been working for 14 years with 7th graders in Lafayette, where I have the pleasure of giving the entire history of the world of bookmaking for the last 5,000 years in an hour and a half. And they better remember it too, because I'm going to test them on it. Then we spend 10 hours and we make a blank book. And then in the blank book, I tell them stories like this. And I show them journals that belong to my grandfather. This is my grandfather, Arthur Gordon Laird, who taught Greek and Latin at the University of Madison. And I don't have a picture of my father, interestingly enough, but his son, my father, had a journal from 1914, and it just so happened, he didn't believe in public education, so he tutored my father at home. But meanwhile, took him traveling, and they went to Europe. And one of the trips they went to Europe, 1914, World War I broke out. And my father's writing, and we went to Antwerp, and there were a lot of soldiers. And I thought, it's interesting. The banks have closed. We're looking for passage home. But there was no mention of, war has just broken out. So, and his scrawl was really hard to read. And I found that journal up in the attic, where I had all these beautiful things from my grandfather in my attic. Stuff is probably why I love this kind of bling that I'm wearing. It was all jet beads and silk and stuff from the turn of the century, and lace and beautiful fine bone china. And I used to go up in the attic and play with that stuff on rainy Saturdays, and just think, oh, that was really cool. And then I'd read the letters, and there were postcards from the turn of the century, and there were postcards of Italy, and of Rome and ruins and Ephesus. And by the way, I'm going to Italy in the shameless advertisement. And if you haven't signed up to come with me yet, there's still room for 3 weeks bookmaking in Florence in August. So that's for real. We can talk about that later. But back to these postcards. They were really, really beautiful, and I used them later. I'm now doing terrible things like chopping them up and putting them into my artwork. and I paint over them. But by telling these 7th graders, you know, your journals, someone's going to find them maybe in a trunk somewhere. And maybe it's one of your relatives, or maybe they'll be out, or maybe they'll be passed on from your mother. And, you know, just trying to drum into them that, you know, it's a good idea. You know, and this is how they were made and hand sewn. Okay, so now you noticed in the last slide, check out, that's my grandfather's nose, right? Okay. Now this is, where's Waldo? Okay. You said, find the nose? Okay. Do we find the nose? Oh, okay, okay. I went to, let's see, we'll skip back and forth here, but this was an etching that I did where I was combining images from postcards from my grandfather, and then I put my grandfather in there. And I call this a journey through the centuries. So I continued to do that, and someone said, well, you know, haven't you tried something more original in your artwork? I just keep doing the same thing over and over. I'm going to just keep doing the same thing over and over. So I said, no, you know, it's just going to look like this. Okay, here I am. I'm a young cookbook critic. Isn't she cute? I'm 3 or 4, and that's my brother Tommy and Clarice. This is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Yes, don't I look like a cookbook writer to be? Everyone has to include a baby picture. This is my mother. I did paint it after she died, or she wouldn't like me showing this. Like, what did you put that yellow line in around me? Or why is my face green? I got very interested in portraits, and I was going to tell you that one of my great loves has always been mysticism. And like the time I was 10, where you're sitting there and someone says something about eternity, and it goes on and on and on forever, and you're looking out at the stars and you think, it goes on and on and on. I can't grasp it. Well, I still can't grasp it, but I like the idea of studying about the mystics. So we'll get back to that later. So here's me and Walter Hamady, my first husband, and my mother, and Mrs. Flashberger, who cleaned house for my mom. She used to find the cigarettes in my top drawer, when I was smoking in high school. She'd always give me what for. So she let me know that it was a bad idea that I had eloped, because Walter and I eloped, and so my mother didn't get to have her daughter's wedding, which was just as well. Then okay. So anyway, we did get married. We eloped. We had a wonderful time of it, and we went to Portugal, and I think we went on a 3-month honeymoon. It was just fantastic. And then after that, so people kept saying, "Oh, Walter, you should write a cookbook." And somehow I heard that to say, "Mary, you should write a cookbook." Or maybe it was like, "Walter, you should write a cookbook, but Mary should do all the kitchen testing and write it all down." So 3 years later, in 1972, we went to Beirut and stayed with relatives for a month, and wrote down dutifully all the recipes, and came back and kitchen tested them for 8 years. 8 years, and basically came back to the way they were done originally. It was great fun, and they were all having a family fight, so you could understand, they weren't getting along so well. Because Aunt Celia was divorced, and you don't get divorced if you were in that part of the country, right? But Aunt Celia was the best cook. So I all the recipes in there that are really good are Aunt Celia's. But don't tell Aunt Hajer I said that, right? Okay. Oh, look. Sam. Oh, Sam. She's really embarrassed. Well, she's on the right, and Micah, her twin brother, is on the left. Yes, they became my printer's devils, and you want to keep doing your work when you think for a while, with your kids. So we had little type drawers full of little toys that children wouldn't choke on, but they weren't interested at all in the little toys. They were cute little roosters and little balls and things. So there's Sammy and Micah. Now this is child labor. Child labor laws. Yes, it was before I didn't, and I'd stand in the big vat next to her and make paper. It's true, we only did this a couple of times. But there's Laura. She became a lawyer. She said enough of this paper making nonsense. But here she is. She's cooching the paper. Isn't that great? Huh? That's just great. I would the way we worked it was we'd find manuscripts that we loved, and I'd make the paper. Once I proved that I could really make paper well, then I got the job. And I loved being out in the bar making the paper, and I'd go out and listen to my Sufi tapes and my Sufi music, and I was one happy camper. And then I would sew the books, and I would put them together. And Walter always did the printing. He did, obviously gorgeous printing. And then if it was a book of my own poetry, then I did those, And so I got to get in there and get on the press. But it was a very it was a welcome division of labor, and it worked. It really worked. That part worked. So then, then when it didn't work anymore, I went back to school in 1984. I actually tried tech college, where you're taking a commercial art class, and I was getting a C. I couldn't draw the pizza right. It was really humiliating. I'd only gotten a C once in college before, and I thought, I don't want to be making pizza announcements. And so I dropped out of tech school, and I went back to the University of Madison. And how could they refuse me? I was the ex-wife of a professor there, so they enrolled me in their program, and I went for my 3 years. I had a great time in graduate school. The only woman in the art department there advised me. She said, "Don't come back for your MFA." She said, "You should become a pharmacist." I said, I don't want to become a pharmacist. She said, "That way you can take good care of your family." And I said, "I want to do my artwork. I've always wanted to have my MFA." So, bullheaded that I am, I returned and I got my MFA. But this was fun. This was before I'd actually entered into grad school. I guess I could look at my screen, but you're more fun to look at. I'd written some poems, and I'd done drawings. I spent like 9 months doing these little crow quill pen drawings. And then I submitted a grant when we still had grants. Do you remember when we still had NEA grants? And I got one. I got one for $1,000. I was in heaven. And then I was allowed in on sort of sneak proof. Ruth Lingen was teaching paper making in Walter's place. So she let me use the paper mill, and I used it. And then Kathy Keene let me use the silver buckle press where I printed this. And then this got done, and I was thrilled. So this is a picture of, this is an Italian landscape. Remember that trip to Florence I was talking about that you can come on if you want to? So it's an Italian landscape from a postcard that belonged to my father, and I put my Sufi teacher, Pir Vilayat, in here. And that's a mirror that belonged to, my grandmother. So I had fun with that. And then I really, you're always talking about the face behind the face. I really became interested in doing portraits. And Shelley recommended that I go take lessons with Carol Peel. This was some time ago, and I studied with Carol Peel, but if I'd be much better now if I had kept it up. And she's a fantastic portrait drawer and beautiful artist. So this is Hazrat Inayat Khan, who died in 1926. So, see, there's another yes from the audience. I did this after I'd been on a 30-day retreat. And I know it's hard for you to believe that I could be silent for, 20, 30, 40 days, but then you see what happens. It's like, yakety, 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 yakety. You can't shut me up. When I was in graduate school, I needed 5 credits that weren't in the art department. So I decided that, like anyone else would decide, that you needed to take 10 weeks of intensive Tibetan. I did have an ulterior motive. My Sufi teacher was going to Tibet, and I thought somebody should be able to speak the language. So I signed up. I took 10 weeks of Tibetan. Tashidale, how was that, Carol? Not too good. That was in 1986. But it worked, and I studied it. And then we went to Tibet, and at that time, it wasn't illegal or thrown in jail, punishable, to take pictures of His Holiness or to take other things. So we smuggled in all kinds of things, and they loved it. I could speak a little Tibetan back then. This guy was great. And this is a couple around the Jorkong, which is the holiest temple in Lhasa, and they asked me to smuggle something out. So I did. We took some letters and mailed them to their son in Dharamsala. And I was particularly impressed at the 16,000-foot passes with these prayer flags, so it's sending out good vibes. You saw the exhibit in the hallway of the Tibetan landscapes. I thought, wow, it's a sign. It's because I'm always looking for signs, you know. So these were up at the summit, and they would hang bags of grain over ropes to send goodwill in all directions. So I made this monoprint from that. And then this one's great fun because it looks like there's an animated dancer underneath here, and they would have big rocks. So I thought it looks like the animated dancer has laid an egg, you know, and it's coming to save the world or something. Then I noticed while I was teaching at San Francisco State, my students would have the greatest time. They had fun, and I was doing all this, you know, the same poems and letterpress, and it was difficult. So I thought I needed to have some more fun. Don't you ever have that thought, like, oh, things should be more fun? So go for it. You know, I'm just telling you. So I went to a paper and book intensive, which is fun for grown-ups. And they have these camps all over the United States in different places, and they are fun. There's 4-day intensives. How in the room has been there? Come on. Yeah. Oh, okay. We need more people to go to these. Aren't they fun? Did you have fun? Yeah, you taught there, didn't you? Oh, okay. So I went, and Tim Ely was teaching there, and he was doing a painted book. And so I came home and I made a painted book, but I didn't put anything in it. It took like 3 more years, and I decided I put my Tibetan journal, because I did write up a big journal that I had to do for the time I was gone while I was in grad school. So I actually typed it up on a typewriter, and it's here. And the little slide things in there are all those slides. I mean, what are you going to do with all those slides you have in your portfolios? I mean, you have to put them in books or something. So I did. And you can flip them up and hold them up to the light, and you can see it. So anyway, this is my first book, of an artist book. And Bill Bunsen, the University of Madison, said you have to have your original document. So this is a little black book that I take into Tibet. Let's see. I had the picture of the Dalai Lama on one side and Hazrat Nat Khan on the other, and I thought, oh, that's cool. So in here, this was all the actual journal that didn't fit into the artist book. And you'll notice that this is when we had the earthquake. That's my father's chair I'm sitting in, and that big gaping hole is where the earth is opening up because San Francisco is going to get swallowed whole, right? And I'm out here in San Francisco. There we are. This is in 1986, and I'm dressed, ready to go to a Halloween party in the streets of Madison. I was particularly attracted to this image of Ushni Shavijaya, who's one of the 3 deities for long life. I still don't know that much about this deity, but I felt very drawn to her, to the being. And I cut it out of wood, and you can see it's all water damaged here, because I was going to print a whole bunch of these up. But I ended up storing them in John's basement. It had a water problem. so now I just put it up against the wall. And there's a continuity to this. Here she is. She's painted, and I mounted her on red silk, and I traded her for therapy. So that was a really, not too many people want my artwork per se, but the therapist she's been one of my greatest customers. So this is a 3x3 foot lino cut that I did for the steamroller as a benefit for the Center for the Book. And let's just go back here a second. Notice that the sun is in the left corner, okay? Right. Okay. And the sun is still in the left corner if you turn yourself upside down here. And I did this all with micro gouges, which is great fun. But here she is, and the sun is in the right corner, correct? Okay, because it's backwards. And when I originally did the one from 20 years ago, I did it backwards, and then it was printed in a book on women and Buddhism in America. And they said, this woman's in the Sufi community, and we don't understand why the hands are all backwards. So I felt really guilty about that for 20 years, and I thought, I have to rectify that. So I did her upright this time. So there's a self-portrait. Then I wanted to do a flag sculpture, and a friend of mine, Ken McCullough, here his son is helping me do rocks. So every artist has to do an installation, right? So here's my installation. I dyed all these, they're sheets, and you take out you take off the doubled up thing, so you don't want to break your type. And then I printed all these poems that are written about Tibet, and then I strung them up, and I wrapped the rocks with my prayers. These are RIT dye. Oh, you don't ever want to use RIT dye in Wisconsin. So that's what happened to the sculpture. And I thought, well, we had a friend, Frank, who kept saying, well, when he died, we should just compost him. And I thought, well, that's how it is. We're here and then we're gone, and the prayer flag sculpture had its time. So this is an etching that was done for learning how to dance by Thomas Rain Crow, and Walter Tisdale printed this. It's still available. And I got a lot of images from my dreams, and this is a suite of prints that I have. And this particular one was a dream I had about learning all this mystical stuff is really hard work, so you got to have a few good dreams once in a while. And I had a dream that there was this huge rope, and now no psychoanalysts in the audience, are there? Okay. The rope was really wide, and it had great big huge footprints in it, and all I had to do was put my foot into the footprint, and I wouldn't fall off this rope, and it kind of went up into the heavens, and I thought that was great. And I've got earth, air, fire, and water going around there. Oh, then I did some more prints. This is a suite that they have down in Santa Cruz, because the chancellor was a physicist. And she said, this looks just like, those things in physics. And I said, you got it. It's like the interconnectedness of all things. Like you're really a beam of light going out there at 186,000 miles a second. So she said, that's great. Can we use this image for our Christmas card? And I said, you own the suite. You can do whatever you want with it. So she used the one that was white on black, because all the images were called dreams and visions, and it was one black image and then one white image. And here's another one. This is called A Dream in the House of My Near Future. So I had all these Buddhist beings on top and Sufi beings underneath. And around, there's all decoration from a book that belonged to my grandfather, because from the Alhambra. I was really taken by all the beautiful drawings that are in the Islamic art. And I had this dream that I'd get a job in California, and it'd be in a second floor. There'd be a table, and it would have books of all the world's religions and all the unnamed religions, and ecumenical. And sure enough, I moved to. That's God calling. So get this story straight. And I moved out here, and I got hired at a Catholic girls' school. It wasn't quite what I had in mind. And here I am. This is my press at home. It's a universal one that Kathleen mentioned. Andrew Hoyam, bless his heart, thank you, Andrew. This is one of his presses that he was selling. And I'm setting something up there. This is the first book that I did here in California. So, this is in the days when you press type. You don't have any of those computers, and I didn't do computer stuff. So I press typed like the Joe and the Pora and the snake train, and then actually went in and hand colored the snake later. And here we go. Here's Joe. Hey, Joe and the Pora. This is a footnotes cards, and you know that little tiny line that comes on a big roll that you have to put out on those old blue mock-ups? So that's what this all was, and then you had to draw the shamrock and the heart and all that stuff, and then press type. And I thought, wow, it's gotten so much easier now with computers. And this little book was harder to do than anything, because it was hard to register that type in those tiny little rectangles. And Kathy Keene, anybody know Kathy Keene? Salient Press. Any of you collectors out there, you should be buying Kathy Keene's books. So I just want you to know that. She's the one who helped me finish my book in Madison, and she's working for Pace Gallery now, but she's just one of the most fantastic bookmakers ever. And she's here on the left with Laura my other daughter on the right. So I went to another PBI, and Dan Kelm was teaching these, doing little knots around little tiny rods. This was the first and last time I ever did such a book. But he was using a hot press, so the first thing I did when I got home was I bought a $900 hot press, right? Which I haven't really used since then. This is Dan. Thank you, Dan. No, I have used it. I'll show you another book I did with it. I used it on this book. So this is the painted book with Tim Ely. There's Tim. Okay, this is a great book. This had all my drawings from I did for a Rumi book that I did that I'll show you in a second. And there was some press type in here, and I had all these original drawings. It was going to be a really elegant book. And I was going to put gold on this press type and put it into my hot press. And the gold would transfer, and it would all be great, and everyone would think, what a pretty book. She really knows what she's doing. So I put it in the hot press. I said, 4 minutes should do it. Yeah, 4 minutes did it. The whole book was glued shut. Because what happened is I had put acrylic on each page to protect it, and so as I pried them open, I basically ruined all the drawings. But I thought, well, I'll just have to go with the flow here, and then I started drawing in it, and then I put snippets of dreams in here, and then I made a really beautiful box for it with little ladders, because I love the image of ladders, how we climb from one level of consciousness to another. And somebody bought it. I couldn't believe it. You never know. So this is it's a whirling dervish with Mevlana Rumi in the background. And John and I finally got to Turkey a couple years ago, and it was wonderful. We were visiting tombs. Yeah, that sounds exciting, right? With this a Muslim group, and so we weren't, but we were traveling with them, and coincidentally, I visited from high school a young man who had been an AFS student when I was in high school, and I was the president of the AFS club. His name was Cem Kozlu. It just so happens that Cem Kozlu is like the most famous man in Turkey now, and I invited us to stay with him, and I'd gone to prom with him back in high school, so I hadn't seen him in 40 years, so. And he was interested in the Sufis, but he was so important now that it would be hard for him to, we'll have to cut this part out, right? Be hard for him to get to the Sufi tekkas. So here's the book. There's a reason for the whirling dervishes. One-handed basket weaving. I did 116 of them. It took me 4 years. The paper for it took Madeline Pesto 2 years to make. She made it all out of linen, and it was like 80. She pressed it with 8 tons. It was a huge amount of pressure, and it was so hard that I had to print it damp. It was breaking all my type. So that was a real good learning experience. This was fun. All those things that you want to transform in your life. Well, here's one way to do it. You just take them all. You make a big sheet of paper out of them. And then you draw into them, and you've probably all done this, right? And so this is a box I made for these kind of papers, and my son had given me a roll of copper, and that like roofing copper. It wasn't really roofing copper; it was thin copper in a roll. Which, let's see if I can drop that thing on the floor. Aha! See, copper corners. Oh, very nice touch. So I got to use them twice. I used them on this book. And I thought it was really gorgeous. And this book was called Hopefully Yours. But it was standing up, and like so many interesting things happen. My mother would say, Mary Louise, you have a run in your stocking. The book fell off the table when it was it was almost done, and it caused the copper along the edges to fall off. So I resorted to to patinaed. Here's, that's in, Here, so the pages are all in here, and there's a prayer flag wrapping it. And this is from the Alhambra again, and here's the cover. Okay, so this is a beautiful copper patinaed paper that I was using, and I just rubbed the patina off, and it served its purpose. And I don't know, that took me months and months, and I felt really good when I was finished. And so there was some kind of transformation that took place. Also felt that I should make my letterpress do something more than just print poetry. So, you know, all your comrades from like graduate school say, well, if you just make 80 prints and, you know, give them to us and we'll put them in a portfolio. So I did. This is called Taking Your Stand. And I used laser printing, and I printed this book, Rainbow Roll, on my letterpress. It took, you know, like I say, 3 months. I like to obfuscate things a lot, so I put some mantras in there, but I put them in the symbol font. So if you know Greek, here you could read some of the letters. And then I chopped it up and I made a book out of it. You can see it upstairs. It has a big rawhide cover. And Sandra Krupa at the University of Washington said, I really like that book, but if you made a smaller version of it, I could buy it, because that one's too expensive. So I said, okay. And let's see, I don't know if I have a picture. There's a smaller one is upstairs too. It's called Behind the Veil. But I love that kind of transformation too, of things that you think are a mistake in your life. It's like, you know, we're stuck with who we are, so enjoy it. Here's the rawhide cover. Then I went to Jerusalem with John. 1999, you know, this is like right when, you know, everyone was afraid we were all going to get blown up. And we went with a Sufi group, and it was with a Tumo cane. And there were no tourists there because there was an advisory against Americans in Jerusalem. So it was great. It was like, you know, there was no problem. And one of the highlights for me was going to there was one of the oldest churches there called St. Mark's it was like 1200. Well, you know, first it's Christian, then it's Muslim, then it's Christian, then it's Muslim. Before that it was pagan. So there was a Syrian Orthodox ceremony going on there. And it really, all these wizened little priests came in, and I was the only one in there. And you stand up, and they said it in Aramaic, which sounds just like Arabic. But I knew the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic because I'd learned it. And I encountered a man in a shop. He said, you really want to go to St. Mark's? If you know one word in Aramaic, you'll go to heaven. I said, well, boy, I got it knocked. So, but the way they were pronouncing it was very different than the way I was doing it. Okay, so at the monastery, there was a man who used to be an artist working for the Louvre, and he did reconstruction of paintings and things. And then he you know, was taken and decided he really wanted to be a monk. So this is at St. John of the Desert, and they were making and restoring icons and making new icons. And I thought, wow, those are all powdered like rubies and lapis and beautiful things. So I came home and I decided, right up the street from the Center for the Book, there's a St. Gregory of Nyssa church where Vladislav Andrejev, who is the head of the Bosporan School of Iconography, he'd come there once a year and teach. So I dutifully went, and anyone could come, and you all make these beautiful icons because they're done from a cartoon. How does this have to fit in? If you look upstairs in the exhibit, you'll see there's a little book of 4 postcards, which I think there's an icon. There's my mother and me, and then I iconized my children. I painted my children in this great big huge painting. They hate it. Right? It's like, who's that? But I thought it's a portal into something, and I can't tell you why I like icons, but you'll see more of them. Then, as I'm sure you've all experienced, you know, our friends are, you know, we're finite. The bodies are finite. So, a friend of mine was diagnosed with non-smoker's lung cancer. We expected her to die in 3 months. So I said, wow, gosh, what would I like to do if I had 3 months to 2 years to live? And again, those are the sort of things I asked myself. So I decided I want to make a book, another artist book, and I wanted to hand plane the covers, which were cherry and oak. And I did 7 of these books, and they were Niger goatskin. It turned out I wanted to use ostrich, and I iconized my mother. So ostrich, I was in Sheridan, Wyoming, helping a friend move, and I was buying time because she was doing her email in a parking lot because she couldn't get reception where she lives. And I walked into a leather shop that had ostrich, and I said, I have to have that ostrich. They had purple and turquoise. So, and then I said, I have to come home and make boxes. and I have to make this book. And the book really made itself. I was learning to trust my intuition more. And here's my little nipping press. Isn't that fun? I'm doing the box. So, John DeMerick gave me that tip. He said, this is how you can make them stick. So there they are. Isn't that cute? All those little glasses are holding down a copper circle that has some diagrams on it. This is the book that Stanford bought, so that allowed me to buy my cookbook. So see, look at that, like my baby. Oh, better my children than my book babies, but Oh, this was, speaking of, book babies and children, Samantha, did all the illustrations for Aesop's Fables. Hannah Regev and Steve Woodall. I was so pleased I got asked to be in this invitational for banned books. And this book was in a show at the Center for the Book, which just pleased me no end. So I have a friend who works in sculpture, and Joel Tabachnik. He made this beautiful box, and he was really happy with me because I ordered 4 of them. And it was like, yeah, well, they kept going up in price, and I thought, oh, that's great. So I've only actually got 3 books together now, but now I have 4 boxes. See, I thought that you could weld a thin piece of copper together. And I had old etchings, and I thought he'll just chop these up. But I wanted to give him free rein, and I suddenly realized after having done Remember the Light that required, all of my effort for 2 years that I could collaborate again. So Sam and Joel and I did this one. And look, isn't that a great hinge? I said, make it the dirtier the better. Yes. And we were so happy that Mary has one in her collection now. Just pleased this punch. There it is. Bless her. So this is the book is upstairs. Isn't that great? Yep. Only a mother can do this. So Sam's printing, and here's one of her drawings. This is called The Mountain in Labor. This is a boy in the filberts. You put your hand in and you take too many, and you can't get your hand out. I did subtext on here, and all the subtext was stream of consciousness. So I kept thinking of J.D. Salinger, and I thought, I'll do my J.D. Salinger in there. So I had fun. I had a really great time. And I laser printed the text, and then I letterpressed the dingbats. And the blind man and the whelp. I like that little foxy-looking whelp and the sheep. Anita Barrow's book, which I sat on for 10 years. This was fun because I decided to... everyone has a pendulum. Don't you use a pendulum for yes, no, maybe, and stuff like that? So I was at a fair in Eugene, and I saw this guy with pendulums, so I bought a pendulum, and I thought, I want to try that. And so I said, is this the color? Is that the color? And anyway, then I decided what I was going to do. But I wanted more fun. So this was fun, too, because the images were all from wood blocks. They were supposed to have easy cut on them, and I discovered that what I liked better was turning the blocks over and putting masking tape on there, and I could change them all the time. Pull the masking tape off and put a different configuration and get this pressure print. Oh, that was fun. I see Norman shaking and said, yeah, go sister, okay. So, and then I did headbanding at the top. This is, everyone should have their whisk and their acrylic paint. I actually deconstructed a book that Priscilla Spittler bound years ago of Andalusian poets. And I thought, this is fantastic. So I deconstructed the whole thing, and then I figured out how to bind Anita Barrow's book. I was embarrassed because I'd had it set for 10 years. You should be quicker about these things. But now she's really happy. And we're going to do a second book together after I bind this. So these are kangaroo laces. Yep, I bought them off of eBay, and then the headbanding. And the copper, this is the copper that, I couldn't decide whether I should make copper corners or vellum. And I thought, librarians are going to puncture themselves and bleed all over the book, So I was having trouble filing the corners down. So I made this one, really nice one with the vellum, and it didn't look right. So let's see. I know I gave that to somebody. So anyway, the rest have copper corners, and you won't cut yourself on them. Here I am. And Dominic Riley gave me my first compass, so I'm trying to do it right here. There's my, cutting them out. I thought you'd be interested in seeing some things in my studio. This one hasn't fit yet, but just to show you. There's my studio. my next door neighbor is a feng shui master, so she said, you have to have huge mirrors. Yep. And my printing press again. Oh, this is called a book in a box. If anyone wants to, borrow it. It weighs 60 pounds, and you can go and teach classes with it. It's really heavy. It's great, though, because, you have all the things that you need for binding in there. Dia Sasso was selling them. Do you have one? I see you nodding your head. No, okay. And it was great. I just put the books in there, and then I can make the headbands. And there's my hot press that I was telling you about that, I'm going to still use somehow. And John, whose picture is over there, that I drew, there's a paper dryer that he made for me. And here we are getting married. Isn't that nice? So when our minister, Shabadin, married us, I said, oh my gosh, he's got a big grease spot on his robe. How embarrassing. And I said, Shabadin, couldn't you have gotten it clean before you married us? He said, it was rose oil. And I said, oh, of course. So that brings us to the end where I can freely pitch you again to say, if you haven't already signed up for coming to Florence, you should definitely call me and we should talk. It's really a dream come true for me. I'm kind of going along as a co-teacher, but initially was Gopher. So it was just a fluke, but I thought it kind of peps you up, when you have something to look forward to, and even if it's hot, and so I can't wait. I'm really excited, and I think that gives us 10 minutes for you to ask all kinds of wonderful questions. And I thank you very much.